Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 51, looking for fun on how to do workshops to get an advancement in your career. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that we are here again. This is a really exciting episode. I get a lot of questions, a lot of emails, inquiries around town about workshops. I know it's a big deal in most of the markets. I don't actually know of any market that's not doing them to some degree. And I am resolutely pro workshop, but that's mostly because I'm very for extroverting your talent. I always say it doesn't matter how people see your work, but people have to see your work and know that your work exists. If you have an agent that's getting you out for a lot of auditions, then your agent is doing the job to extrovert your talent. But if, like many of you, you don't have an agent who's at the level that they can do that, I find actually getting direct relationship contact with the casting directors over time proves to be very beneficial for a lot of people. Workshops are not for everyone. If you hate doing workshops, if it makes you want to claw your skin off your face, I have a lot of friends who've been in that boat, and they just have to find other ways to extrovert their talent, whether that's through doing, shorts and YouTube videos and making their own content, doing podcasts, whatever it is, so that people can see you performing live, maybe at a comedy show, whatever it is, but people need to be able to see you and see you exist. And this is going to be about the workshops as the outlet to do so. So today we are talking to my dear friend and consistent workshop actor, meaning he gets called in all the time. He books all the time from workshops. That's Mike Horton. He is an excellent actor that I have known for a long time. And then the second half, we're going to have the owner of Ace Studios here in Los Angeles, Brett Weinstock. He is an actor. He did workshops for years before he was running them. Then he's opened up his own place, and then he was involved in the whole thing that went down in Los Angeles where they got taken away for a bit, but workshops are back. And so the first half, I'm talking with another actor who's currently doing workshops. They are having success with them, and we talk about those strategies. And the second half, we are talking with the actual workshop owner to talk about, casting directors, what they're coming to the table with, and how workshops are being ran right now due to the systems that have been put in place to protect actors and actors' rights. This episode is brought to you by Ava Evans, hypnotherapist in Los Angeles. I love Ava. I've talked about her on this podcast before. A lot of people use hypnotherapy to manage their audition anxiety and also stage fright. That's been a thing for decades and decades. I have used her. I had a very exciting bout with anxiety, and I went to her. I was having lots of panic attacks, and after one session, my panic attacks ceased. So if you are a person who suffers from anxiety and panic or stage fright or anything that, makes it impossible for you to function the way that you need to function, I really recommend giving it a try. Also brought to you by We Audition. That's weaudition.com. If you are listening to this, you probably saw me at the meetup. So huzzah! Meetups for all. So hopefully we had a good time, and I hope that I saw you there. Weaudition.com, promo code Audrey25. You guys just know when you put in that promo code, it really helps us out. Audrey Helps Actors. If you could also help Audrey, that would be so great. All right, you guys, I hope you're on your way to an audition. Book it. So many of you have booked already this year. I'm so happy for you. Book it. Book it, book it, book it, book it, book it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Mike Horton.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
How are you? Thanks so much for coming on today.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So today, you guys, we have Mike on. We're doing this very quick interview. We have part 2 for you, wherein I talk with the owner of Ace Studios. We recorded that interview like 6 months ago, and we're just deciding to retool it and add this section with Mike because Mike has done a lot of workshops. He still does them. He's very successful with them, and I want the conversation to be really accessible to all of you in terms of like how to make workshops really viable. And I want to emphasize again that you don't have to do workshops, but what you do have to do is extrovert your talent. And for many people, workshops is the quickest, fastest, most fun way to extrovert your talent, in addition to practicing your audition skills in front of casting directors that actually care about you.
Yeah. I mean, you said it.
Okay. I mean, that's great.
No, I think that's totally true.
That's it.
Like, especially the fun part. I think workshops are really fun.
I think so.
Yeah, you get a chance to perform. And like, how often do you have an audience full of people? Generally, they're rooting for you. You know, so you make the room laugh and like people tell you good job and you're like, yeah, this is a community, right?
I'm good.
This feels great. Like, I never feel better than when I'm driving home from a workshop.
I agree. I always felt, so I stopped doing workshops when workshops had died in Los Angeles. It was just sort of the timing of where my resume sort of hit in conjunction with workshops had died. But eventually what happened was when I was doing workshops, I actually used to always go and dread. Like, I never was in the mood to do them. It was a lot like going to the gym.
Totally.
On the way there, I was always like, and also I live probably 40 minutes to an hour and a half away from like almost all the workshop places. And it was always like a workshop, 7 p.m. So I'm like in my fucking car at 5:30 in traffic on the way there, thinking about, how everyone does workshops, who even cares? Are they valuable? And just continued to put in the time, do the grind, and build the relationships. And I knew it was really important for me to just get better at being in front of casting directors and not freaking the fuck out. So I would say I always went horrified, left feeling like a star.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, especially the ones that are like at 7.
I know.
7:30, like, I want to be in bed by 7.
You want to sleep.
When you're waking up early and you have a full day and then you're going to a workshop, like, it can really feel like such punishment that you're putting yourself through.
Yeah.
And
so I had this deal with myself, which I really encourage everyone to do, which is similar to when I was going to the gym, was like, I just have to get there. So I literally had this deal with myself that if I got to the workshop and I felt like leaving, I could leave.
Oh, I used to do that at the gym all the time.
Right?
Yeah, just park and walk in.
Yeah. And
see how you feel.
Yeah. And honestly, because I felt like I'd done my job. I'd shown up. And I do feel like sometimes maybe you're just not in the mood and you shouldn't go.
Isn't it so funny that you can go from like, murder me, kill me, this is the worst thing, why am I putting myself through it, to like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. Like, what
in general,
does that say?
I find a lot of acting to be that way.
Oh God, no kidding.
Getting ready for an audition, I'm always like, and then like 20 minutes after working on it, I'm like, yeah, I love acting and I just love auditioning. So let me ask you some questions about workshops.
Cool.
So the reason I'm having Mike do this is because I haven't done workshops in a few years, but I do have a lot of strategies that really worked for me. And so he'll ask me questions, I'll ask him questions, but he's been in the game of workshops recently. And so I want some like more topical current information.
Cool.
Okay, great. So have you been called in from a workshop within the last year?
Yes.
Great. Have you booked work from a workshop within the last year?
Yes.
Great. Do you have any advice on how actors can do them effectively?
Yeah, I think actors need to be really smart about what they're selling. The biggest problem that I see in workshops are when people try and make really sort of big, bold swings. Like, so for example, like if you're going into Criminal Minds, you need to understand what Criminal Minds is and you need to understand what your role on that show is. Yeah. And so you see a lot of people think like, ooh, would it be interesting if I played the killer? Mm-hmm. When the role is so clearly not the killer, but you're maybe like, I'd be a great killer on Criminal Minds. So you're trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole based on your sides. Just do the sides as best you can in the world of the show. And like, it's not about being the best actor. It's just like, are you castable in that part that they clearly see you in, especially when they're assigning sides.
Yes.
Right? So that would go for assigning sides. But yeah, I mean, I see that a lot. Just people don't fully think it through and they make really self-indulgent choices.
Indulgent is such a great way to put it because I want you guys to know when I started doing workshops, and this is like when people are like, I did workshops for 6 weeks and I didn't get called in. I'm like, did you do them for 8 years?
Yeah.
Did you do 8 years of workshops without getting called in? Because I did. And then I'm not even making that number up, you guys, 8 years. And then by the time I had quit doing workshops, I had gone from getting called in 0 out of 10 workshops to actually, I do my numbers, getting called in 9 out of every 10 workshops. And the whole time, the reason I also have Mike here is I want you to understand that the whole time I was doing workshops with Mike, and for those 8 years I was not getting called in, Mike would get called in every single time.
I have had good luck with workshops. That's true.
I don't think you've had good luck. You're good in that environment. Mm-hmm. And I think you've always had a casting that was pretty good and pretty clear. And I think also, in demand. Okay, great. So an example I want to give you about when I did that is I remember doing this workshop for sweet casting assistant over at Grey's Anatomy. And I swear I got the sides and I read them like, swear to you, like a 50-year-old Southern man. They were from Scandal.
That's incredible.
I just had the idea of this character, and the character was in no way Audrey. I'd been given these sides, and when I read them, I just thought, he talked like this, and he had this Southern drawl, and he was this big 55-year-old smoker, and he was going to get some legal done.
That's incredible.
And I did it. I've never seen any casting director look so confused because they knew I was a hard worker, and they knew that I was talented, and then I would do something so remarkably stupid that they just didn't understand why I would ever do that.
Yeah.
Surprise, I never got called in for 8 years. Never
That's
got called
really
in.
funny. Yeah, but just, the point is, they're going to cast you in a co-star or a small guest star, probably. Mm-hmm. And those are small parts that don't require depth in an episode. Mm-hmm. So you need to, show who you are, what you're about, in a clean, castable way.
Right, and I would say if the sides require depth is great.
You have to bring it.
I mean, Mike has definitely done workshops where he has thrown down with all kinds of depth. But in general, if they're giving you doctor sides, be a doctor.
Just be a doctor.
If they're giving you teacher sides, be a teacher and be your version of a teacher. Don't get lawyer sides and suddenly fantasize your 55-year-old smoker Southern white guy doing these lawyer sides when it's in fact you.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So do you have any advice on how to do workshops effectively?
I do. I would say one of the best things that you can do to make them really effective is to know whether or not that casting director is casting a show that is shooting in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so prep ahead of time.
Do research.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think part of the reason why I did workshops so unsuccessfully for so many years was because I was doing workshops for my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Whether or not those shows were at all right for me had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I just loved that show.
Yeah.
And also, that show was shooting in Canada. That show was shooting in Atlanta. That show was shooting in New Mexico. So eventually, I learned that I needed to make sure that the casting director was casting shows that shot locally because for smaller roles, co-star roles, one-day guest star roles, they weren't going to fly me to Vancouver.
Yeah.
I wasn't special enough. Now, there are some people that are unique and special enough. I just wasn't one of them. And so when I started really targeting casting directors that were shooting shows that shot in the market I was in and really tailoring my sides, tailoring the material I was going in for their tone of show, that's really when I started getting called in specifically. So for instance, if I was doing a casting director workshop for Fresh Off the Boat, then I would bring in sides maybe from Blackish because it was same network, same half hour, a different tone, but similar enough.
Yeah.
But also not the casting director's actual show.
Yeah.
Don't do workshop sides from the show that you're going in that the casting director already is casting. Because I think they have a vision of the person they cast and they can't really see around that.
Yeah.
And so if I thought I was right for a teacher on Fresh Off the Boat, I would do the role of a teacher from Blackish.
And how would you find out that information?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that. So that information is just a really good Google search. And you have to sort of sleuth, because some of them will say they're shooting in Los Angeles, but it's because they maybe do some external shots in Los Angeles, but mostly are shooting in Vancouver.
Yep.
So you do really want to sleuth and investigate.
Yeah. And so I would just say to that, like the emails that you're getting nowadays versus emails before workshops were shut down, they feel to me like they're selling more now than they ever have been.
Oh, interesting.
And in my research, when I get those emails, and if it's an office I'm not sure of or a person I don't know about, I'll look them up and I'll be like, oh, everything that you said in that email is not true.
Oh,
you know?
I love that. Yeah. Part of what used to happen is I would do a workshop and they would say to me, this person casts this blah, blah, blah show. And I would think that was great. And I would go in and I do it. And I think I did a really great job. And then like years later, I discovered that show for 4 seasons has shot in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Or even more, and this is part of why they don't do offices anymore, is because they would say this office, this cast director cast in this office that cast these 8 shows.
Yep.
Now, the 8 shows I would be really interested in, say maybe 2 of them, but the casting director that was coming in that night actually had nothing to do with the 2 that I wanted to be on.
Yeah, totally.
Is that clear?
Yeah, that is clear. I mean, there are some pretty large offices now where a lot of people are showing up to these workshops. And so you should really be looking into that. I mean, like, I guess I could say Telsey & Company casts so much stuff.
Yes.
From features to Broadway to episodics. And you got to know, like, you're probably not being considered for a musical, you know?
In Los Angeles.
Yeah,
if
at
you're
a
doing a
workshop, if
workshop
that's what you're
for a
looking
musical in New York City and you're in LA, they're not likely going to fly you out to do the musical in New York City. However, if you're doing a workshop for that company in New York City, then that's maybe more a reasonable plan of attack.
Totally.
Okay, great. Any changes that you have noticed in workshops and their structure since their return?
Yeah. Workshops of yore, I'm an idiot. The old workshops used to really feel like the casting directors were specifically there to find out who they're going to call in. Like, like you could feel it in the room. Like, oh, that person's totally getting called in. Like you could tell based on maybe like half of the workshop. If you started to see how the casting director would sort of respond to people, you could kind of pick up their vibe and understand kind of what they wanted and who was having success.
And I want to pause on that. When you say what they wanted, I would just like to clarify that to me means what is their taste.
Totally.
Because some casting directors want things acted. Like they want to see people like come in and like chew it up. And some casting directors are like, you guys, that's a lot of acting. Have you seen my show? Just be a person in a place talking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So now, though, in workshops, I think that's much more masked. It really feels like the casting directors are taking their position in these workshops as a place for them to teach, as opposed to like scout new talent for their office or their shows. I'm not saying they're not doing that because I have been called in, but it seems much more like an opaque process. Like you can kind of leave the workshop and go, I don't know.
Yes.
Like I feel like I did well, but I don't really know.
Right.
You know, because they're like a lot of times, speaking of just what I've seen actors do, like they nail a scene as compared to someone who fell on their face. And they basically get, because, you know, a lot of these workshops work where 4 or 5 people are doing the same sides.
Right.
So someone can fall on their face and it's obvious to everyone in the room, this is like a very green new actor that kind of needs to be in class.
Yeah.
Versus someone who clearly works a lot and like nailed it.
Comes in to do work.
Yeah. And the casting director essentially can give them the same exact notes. Like they're just there to rework the scene. I want you to do it twice. That's what your money's worth. You know, that's what you're paying for. And so that's not bad or good. It's just different, you know?
Yeah. I will say that for me, I just also want to caveat doing workshops for people that are shooting strictly shows in your current market where you're doing the workshop, that my only caveat to that is if you're a particular actor that really just needs to actually practice doing work in front of casting directors and not freaking out, that there is a stage when you get to in your career where you need people to see you, to book you. And I am here to say, though I thought I was at that level earlier in my career, I don't believe I actually was. And I think there's tremendous value to just going in, getting sides, and the nervousness and the anxiety that happens from being in front of somebody that you feel like means a lot to your career and your happiness, as you and I have discussed, then I found it really valuable to just go and practice. And for a lot of you, you're very much at that stage. And so please just go do workshops. Just go do them and get comfortable, because as your skill grows as an actor, if you manage your skill as an actor along with your comfort in front of casting directors, I think that's a really nice trajectory. And you might also hear from, agents or managers or teachers who might say to you that you're burning bridges, you're ruining relationships. And I'm here to tell you that a large portion of my resume is relationships that I made during casting director workshops, even if they cast me long after I had stopped doing workshops. They had a familiarity with me. They knew me. We had a relationship. And I feel that really benefits me when I go into the room. I feel comfortable. I know who they are. I know that I can communicate to them and feel a little bit more easier about them because they're human beings now to me. And I clearly was making choices where I sucked the root despite all of my magical skills as an actor. And I don't feel that I'm punished for that, because they really do understand people get better.
100%.
And they'd like to see that when actors get better. I think they get excited when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell a story about that. Like, I was in a workshop where, sort of like what I said, like four people would go out and they would do the same side. So one person would come in and then leave, and you'd see all four do the same sides, and then the room would cast it while they were outside of the room, and then they would all come back, and we would, the casting director would let the four people know what the room thought. And the first person to come in on this one group, she was like 20 years old and did not do well. And when she left, the casting director said, "I know this girl. She just moved here. She's incredibly green. Let's go a little easy on her. This is probably her first time being in front of a casting director."
Yes.
And the amount of understanding that the casting director showed and sort of was sticking up for her was really heartening, because that they see that. I mean, people are getting off the bus every day here,
right?
Getting auditions they're not ready for.
Yes.
Constantly, right?
Yes.
80% of the room probably isn't really ready for that audition, and then 20% are. So
for a certain level.
Yeah. And so I think, I remember being terrified on like a 2-word audition.
Oh, me too.
2 words.
No, me too. I mean, I remember commercial auditions where I had 3 lines, and I'd be like, over and over again, and then over and over again. I remember my first couple of co-stars, I had written down my line on a piece of prop paper that I hid under another prop.
Totally.
And then just before they called action, I read it and was like, okay, I still have it.
Yeah. And just like my entire body just vibrating from nerves when I have to say, "He went that way," just like so terrified.
So we laugh only because we were there. We get it. Yeah. And, we're on the other side now, but it was very real.
Yeah. And that's not something you can hide.
Yeah.
That is, unfortunately, that is very obvious.
To me,
you just have to work through that.
Exactly. To me, you just have to work through it. And you have to decide if workshops is a good environment for you to work that out. And know that if it's painful, if it's uncomfortable, if it's frustrating, that's correct. That's where the growth comes from. And I encourage everyone to sort of challenge themselves to work through it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite structure of workshop for your favorite kind of results, and has that changed?
So I generally like doing workshops where the casting director assigns the sides based on headshot, because I think it's a good way to check in on your material. Like if you're getting sides that make a lot of sense for you, that's a great sign that casting director sees who you are as an actor in your headshot.
And you're at that place now. I mean, generally your headshots,
I think, totally.
They very much reflect you.
Yeah. So I primarily try and do those workshops if possible. Like some, you can't always. A lot of people want you to bring in your own sides, but those are definitely the ones that I find I have the most success with. I think.
Did that change? Did you used to prefer where you
I've always preferred those. Way back when, I think we used to have cold reads. Like they would hand out sides in the room.
Yes, right.
And then you'd go out and do like 15 minutes of prep. I felt like I always did well on those.
You did. You're very good at cold read.
Yeah, I think I'm just really facile about figuring out what the scene is. And so I never really had the problem of completely screwing it up, like just completely missing the point of the scene.
Being a 50-year-old Southern lawyer.
Which, you know, is really defensible when you have 15 minutes on 6 pages or something. Like you're just trying to figure out, how do I say these words out loud?
I just have such an imagination.
That's it. See, that's it. But yeah, so that's what I would say work best for me. I also can feel like if you have the same scene that you're bringing in over and over, it can get a little stale. And that's a specific talent to keep that fresh and keep it alive for you. And I don't know how many people are constantly looking for new scenes because it's hard to find one good one, you know?
Yeah, so I felt the opposite. I felt that, so this is good because I think I'm always trying to talk to people on here about knowing your work and knowing what gets you the best results. And that is, for me, why you have to track it.
Yeah.
Because if you get the best results from these sort of more cold read, off of your headshot, make quick choices, and it might be because for you, because of your understanding and knowledge of story, because you're a writer as well, you make these quick, fast decisions and you have a good sense of self that you bring that fast. And other people might struggle with that. So in comparison to them, you're really standing out, right?
Yeah.
So for me, because I struggled forever with story, I had the best success with a multi-week workshop where the first week I brought my own sides. So I could sort of throw down and show them who I am and what I do. Then the second week, either we would bring in our own sides again, or we would do assigned sides, maybe co-stars or something like that. And then the third week, we would go in again, and they would usually assign a larger set of sides based off of the work you've done in the first week and then the second week. And the reasons I had a lot of luck with that was because I felt doing a workshop with them 3 weeks in a row gave me 3 weeks to kind of be right for maybe something that was coming down the pike for them. Also, I knew that I was capable of being good with consistency. And I felt for them to trust me and see, oh, look, she's great. Oh, she's still great. Oh, look, she's great.
Yeah.
That to me gave me, I felt a little bit of an advantage to be consistent over time. And in addition, I was looking to see how I saw myself in my casting and then see how that translated in the casting that they gave me.
Yeah. Because
they could see me act a few times, that then the final time that I got the sides where they assigned it to me, I was very prepared.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, the multi-week workshops are really valuable, I think, as opposed to the one-offs. But especially for someone who is nervous, like when you, let's say you fall on your face the first week, get a little better on the second week, and do like a good job on the third week, they're going to remember the third week.
Absolutely.
And they're going to say, oh, that first week, just nervous. Right?
Yeah.
And you're comfortable.
Or if at all, if you even remember it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the third week, I mean, it's the third time you're seeing everyone in the room, so you're a lot more comfortable with them. And
That's
you're a lot more comfortable with the casting director. So I would say, but I think by and large, most workshops now are multi-week.
Yes.
Or meet multi-times. I mean, I think maybe Ace does some one-offs every once in a while.
Yeah.
Based on the calendar. But, but
and
yeah.
I think Ace or one-offs are very good for certain people with certain schedules, you know. But again, none of this is like the right way. I think you have to experiment with which works best for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything that you want to say that actors should be wary of when considering workshops or doing workshops?
I mean, I don't want to say this is a rule by any means, but I don't think you should spend your time in feature film offices.
I so agree.
And I don't think you should spend your time with, they're doing a lot of like TV directors now. Now, maybe you're in a place where you're getting a lot of auditions and you're kind of, I mean, a lot of these directors, they work either on the same show or similar shows, right? So let's say I directed a couple episodes of MacGyver and now I'm working on Magnum PI or something, right?
Sure.
Like similar style shows. If you're not getting in to those offices for shows like that, like you need to know that. It's not, that director's not suddenly going to go do half-hour comedy.
Oh, I love that.
So I also think they just work so much less. I mean, they are going to be the decision maker, right? But the casting director has to call you in, and then you have to get your tape sent to that director, and then he has to remember he saw you in a workshop. He or she has to remember that from, you know, a month prior, multiple months prior. And I just don't. It just seems like less bang for your buck.
Well, I was going to say, how often, because I don't think the listeners know that, how many episodes of television a year do you think an average director does?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question, but I would say like max 3.
That's what I think. I think probably
Yeah.
about 3.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I think that's smart. Now, however, if you're a person who wants to make relationships with directors, if you want to know about how directors work, if you maybe would get nervous on set in front of directors, I think that there's some value to that. But I agree, when you're doing workshops and you're trying to just like get your foot in the door for these smaller roles, that perhaps the casting directors are maybe the quickest, fastest route.
Yeah, and if you're just looking for a co-star, you just want a credit, I would say avoid comedy offices too. Procedurals cast, their guest cast is so large each week as compared to a sitcom.
I'll give you guys the numbers. So for half-hour comedy, it's usually 4 to 6, really 0 to 6. Guest and co-star cast per episode, as opposed to procedural or dramas, which is usually 10 to 16.
And also, like, firsthand experience, we've known a lot of actors, and a lot of their first credit is generally a drama.
Well, and again, I think that's numbers. And I also wanted to talk about the worlds in which that works. When casting directors are looking for comedic actors and they get a show, they just go to the comedy shows and they look for those actors because they don't want to teach people how to be funny, because it's not something that you can just do in a workshop.
Right.
Also, those worlds are these mini little insular worlds where the writers generally came from a comedy school, and they're going to find their friends and people that need a credit. And it's a very insular world. Now, that said, I have booked comedies from workshops, but I do agree that it is maybe not as valuable an investment for immediate return.
Yeah, and that's really the tough thing too. Like, there's a kind of a through line in this conversation about like, how do you get there the quickest or the most efficient? But like, you could go do a workshop with a TV director and get some huge recurring role on their show, and like that makes your career. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just based on the numbers and based on like
the math.
Yeah.
Again,
you don't wanna get burnt out.
Right. Oh, so true. Again, take a look for you, what it is for you and what works for you. Okay. The thing I want to suggest everyone be wary of is being taught how to act in casting director workshops. I think that casting director workshops can be very tricky, and that you can get notes that are actually maybe misleading and not helpful and go against what you're currently being trained in by your teachers. And it might be because of difference of language. It could be because of the kind of scene you got. It could be all sorts of things. And generally speaking, like I had a friend who had a casting director tell her she's just wearing too much makeup. It's too much makeup. Nobody wears that much makeup anymore. Now, this particular actor didn't love to like stand out a lot, but wore makeup because this person's casting was like beautiful woman. And so then just started not wearing as much makeup. And then the numbers started to show in a negative way. And they were just like holding on to, well, this one casting director said I wore too much makeup, instead of like, well, maybe that was that one casting director, and maybe you need to like test that out again.
Yeah.
Let's just test it out and check, right?
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. I mean, I would say like take good notes and say casting director A does not like my makeup.
Yes.
That does not apply to casting directors B through Z.
Right. So maybe that was that casting director's thing. And taste and preference versus what I actually need to be listening to. Yep. So I want you to look for consensus in numbers of feedback. If 2 casting directors make a comment on your headshot, but 14 do not, then I would just take a look at that. Yeah. And if 2 casting directors make a comment on your headshot in a way that makes you a little insecure, then maybe ask a few other casting directors about your headshot.
Yeah.
But it could be that those 2 casting directors have a preference of the kind of headshots they like, and then you go and panic and get brand new shots again as though that's the magical answer, when really it may have just been those 2 casting directors and their taste and preference.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's so true.
My last thing that I really want to make clear with everyone that was a real game changer for me, and I know Mike has experienced this with other people, is that treat the workshop like a job interview. And I can't stress that enough, that the reason I share my journey with everybody is because I really was making those choices. Like, I remember going into workshops and being like, I'm just naturally great. And I would come in kind of not prepared. And I would have, the scene that I had picked out, because I thought it was like kind of a good scene. It wouldn't really be memorized. I wasn't professionally taking it seriously because I didn't understand how seriously I needed to take it. And I just thought I'm just like magically really talented. And as you can see, Mike, when he has that sort of experience, does get called in. And so it's easy to look at somebody else and go like, oh, they just sort of get sides and they work on them and then they go in and then they are great. And I had to learn from myself that actually didn't work for me. And so eventually I started getting coached for all my workshops. And it was a shocking thing. Like, I would go and see coaches and they'd be like, what is this for? And I'd be like, oh, I have a workshop on Friday. And they were like, you're coaching for a workshop? And I was like, yep, got to be good. And so my expectation was to be really exceeding their expectation and how good I was going to be in this piece. And also because I wanted to practice auditioning.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant earlier. Like, I like when I get assigned sides a day or two prior, and then I prep it like a real audition. Like,
I see.
Like the job that I booked, it said in pretty small print in sort of the breakdown of that workshop class, that you have to be off book.
Yes.
I was one of maybe 4 to 5 people of like 30 something that were off book, and it turned out that was super, super, super important to that casting director.
Yes.
And those 4 people probably all got called in. I did.
Yeah, so that's just taking it seriously in a particular way to really understand the game. Like, you guys are trying to stand out in a flooded marketplace.
And people are coaching. Like, that's real.
People are
all coaching now.
Yes, for their workshops, because they're understanding, like, this is the scene that I'm being brought in to show my best work. And so you need to show your best work. Yeah. And again, what are you doing workshops for? For me, I was really doing them to practice my execution in front of somebody that made me nervous. And I didn't find that in audition classes that translated. In acting class, it didn't translate. But when I was in a casting director workshop in front of a casting director that made me very nervous, that was going to solve my life, that it took a lot of practice and repetition for me to feel like I could do my best work the same way I could in class.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's so true.
Okay.
Like, audition exercises in class, you're just in front of your teacher and all your friends.
And some people find the opposite. Some people find that in class that it makes them more nervous. And then in front of like a stranger, they're just like, oh, okay, let's just do some work.
Yeah.
And then in front of their peers and their acting teacher, they suddenly clam out. Yeah. So again, know who you are and then work the way that's most effective for you, but investigate what is effective for you.
And that's trial and error, right? That's the investigation. Yeah.
That is. It's trial and error. And so you have to have enough numbers to find out which one works. And when I started getting called in all the time, that's what I started adjusting was, oh, okay, when I do these scenes, I get called in. Oh, when I dress like this, I get called in. Oh, when I do multi-weeks, I get called in. Yeah. Oh, when I coach, I get called in.
Yeah. Yeah, right? That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Any final words on workshops?
Do them. They're a lot of fun.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. Extrovert your talent is what I would say. Also, I want to say the people that I was doing workshops with when I was doing them really consistently, all of us are working.
Yeah.
Like great. there were like about 4 or 5 of us who every week was doing 2 to 3 workshops.
Yeah.
And all of those people are consistently working now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, that reminds me, it can feel so confusing and frustrating. How do you get from where you're at to where you want to be? But if you just do all of that work, it suddenly becomes very clear. Right? You look at those numbers and you're consistently showing up.
Yeah.
You know, which is like Audrey consistently shows up more. That's
oh my God, it's my name.
It's your nickname.
Audrey consistently shows up more. It's so true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.
But wait, Mike, wait. Your excellence is just so exhausting. So I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Ava Evans. That's Ava Evans. She is a hypnotherapist in Los Angeles. She has dozens of 5-star ratings on Yelp, and she's been doing hypnotherapy for like 16 years. She's very good. Hypnotherapy is really helpful for so many issues that interfere with people moving forward with your confidence, with your passions. It's just, I can't tell you enough how much she helped me, and I still to this day use some of the techniques that really help to ground and calm me in exciting and nervous situations. Really great for career success, motivation, getting over fears and phobias is a huge thing. Anything from auditions to going to the dentist. Lots of people have lots of success. Anxieties, habits like smoking. You can just see she gets people to quit smoking like all the time. That's what she does. Nail biting. Also, even other things you might not think of, like relationship strategies. Moving on from loss is a big one. Building confidence, weight loss, eating habits. So that's hypnotherapylosangelesca.com. That's hypnotherapylosangelesca.com.
Audrey, hey girl, hey, it's Marissa. I'm calling from Los Angeles with a question about jobs. So I usually stick with jobs that are flexible to my schedule for acting, but recently I've been offered an opportunity that would require me to be definitely available on some weekends throughout the year. It's up in the air right now how many weekends it would be. But I'm having anxiety about committing to a job that may overlap with me booking something. The first part of my question is, how often do major productions shoot on Saturdays and or Sundays? And then secondly, do you think it's a bad idea to turn down an opportunity like this in the chance that I might book something that would overlap? Or do you think I'm being smart by not pigeonholing myself into a commitment that I wouldn't be able to get out of? Help! And thank you a million for all you do. You are the best. I am obsessed. Bye.
Hey girl, hey. So I love this question. It really ties in to Miata's episode. If you guys haven't listened to Miata's episode yet from season 4, the opening episode for season 4, then I really recommend you have to listen to it. It's vitally important. Maybe the most or one of the most important episodes we've done so far on the podcast. So here's the thing about side jobs is Miata talks about writing the script in your head about how things will go disastrously before they even get there. So you have to have an honest conversation with yourself about actually how often are you auditioning and how often are you booking? And to what degree are you trying to head a problem off at the pass or prevent yourself from getting the resources that you really need in order to make this career sustainable? So to answer your first question, generally speaking, productions don't shoot on the weekends, but there are exceptions. Commercials, I believe, are still double scale shooting on the weekends, and often they shoot on the weekends. It's not super common, but it does happen, and you don't want to feel like you can't take your commercial job because of your job. As far as shooting film and television on the weekends, I would say with film, that's very common. Film is often shooting on the weekends, right, Jesse? Yeah, film is just like, let's get it done as fast as we can, as often as we can. Television, not so much. However, where it does become an issue is if you're in a place in your career and resume where you will be filming out of state. Generally speaking, if you are shooting out of state, you will likely be there for a while. Even if it's a one-day guest star, even if you think, I'm only there for 3 days, what always happens is you're like, they're going to have you there for 3 days. And then you pack for 3 days, and then you're literally there for 2 to 3 weeks. I have it happen to me. I have it happen to my friends. It happens all of the time. So if you are in a place in your career where you will be shooting out of state, know that that will probably create a hiccup for weekend jobs. However, if you are shooting and you have a resume that is mostly local to your market and mostly in television in your market because of your resume, then I would say it's not a problem for the weekends. Especially, I know this actress in particular books a lot of comedy, and comedy is almost completely all in Los Angeles, and they very much have a Monday through Friday work schedule. It's part of why half-hour comedy is kind of like the dream cush job for a lot of actors. It's stable hours, it's Monday through Friday, you have a very consistent schedule, you know when you're going to come home, you know when you're going to go to work. So if you are a comedic actor, particularly in the Los Angeles area, I would say a weekend job is maybe even ideal because you're not going to have usually auditions or shooting on the weekends. But let's talk about jobs. If you are in a place where you're building your resume and you are feeling nervous about committing to a kind of job, I want you to be honest with how many days a year you'll actually be booking/working. If you are at a co-star place in your job, you're probably not booking more than a really good year would be a handful of co-stars, like 3 or 4, which really means, shooting one day and maybe having to go in for wardrobe. And those are all things that happen Monday through Friday. If you are a person who is booking guest stars and above, then that's somebody who's going to be out for a long time. And this is why I'm a really big fan of financially preparing to be fired. I think a lot of actors have the money that they have and then they spend it or they match their budget for the money that they have. And what I really encourage you to do is to be saving intelligently so that if an opportunity comes along your table, you are able to take the risk and get fired for an opportunity that is really going to benefit your career. So for instance, if you have a job that doesn't have a ton of flexibility, but that's fine, you can manage a day off here or an audition there, and you really are looking at like maybe you have 20 auditions a year, maybe you book 1 or 2 jobs a year. And can your job work with your flexibility in that? Great. But then if you book a guest star that ends up taking you to Atlanta to go shoot and you have to be there for 8 days and you're going to get fired, I need you to have money saved. We'll call that active planned savings so that you can afford to get fired from that job. Because I believe energetically, spiritually, even practically in the way that you prepare and you execute, if you are not setting yourself up for an ability to take a job and all the things that will come along with that, whether that is, having a hiccup at your job, or something that happens with your family or your apartment or your relationships, I believe that you will maybe even unknowingly do self-sabotaging things that prevent you from really being accessible and accomplishing those goals. So it's a tricky thing. I really recommend people who have a question about this to listen to Ashley Platt's first episode, her first Leveling Up episode. We talk about that. She is a yoga teacher and she does that very successfully. And because she's so good at it, they want her to do yoga teacher training and to be available and rise in the ranks of that. And she's had to work very strategically to keep that going and take advancements, but knowing that those advancements are so that she can grow and build her time, energy, and money to continue to invest in her career. You just have to remember you're self-investing into your business, but money isn't the only thing you're investing. You're also investing time and energy. It's a hard thing. And I think, you have to ask yourself, are you making emotional choices or are you making choices out of data, information, and clarity? If you're only auditioning 10 times a year, then I don't think we have a big problem. If you're only booking 2 jobs a year, I don't think we have a problem. But if you're at the place where you want to start booking larger roles, I do think you have to start looking at your finances and asking yourself, are you prepared to actually receive those opportunities and accept them in a practical sense? And if not, set that up for yourself. All right, girl. I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Brett Weinstock.
Hi, Brett.
Hi.
So tell them who you are and what you run.
Great. So I currently am the owner of A Studios here in Burbank. We do anywhere from 25 to 35 workshops a month.
Okay.
Those range from single night to 2-weekers to 3-weekers.
Great.
That's the workshop side. We do on-camera stuff. We do cold reads, assigned seeds, kind of whatever the CD picks.
So, Brett, first I want you to tell them about you being an actor, because I think that's helpful information. And I want you to give them sort of your landscape as far as, do you audition? How often do you audition? Do you work commercially, theatrically, voiceover? Are you union? Do you have agents? How long have you been in Los Angeles? Sort of working the actor scene.
Yeah, so I've been in LA for 12 years.
Okay.
The first 3 or 4 of them, I would say, I was union or SAG eligible from when I first moved here.
Okay.
I'm originally from Las Vegas. I spent 3 years straight just doing background work there.
I see.
Just on every movie, every TV show you could do to kind of learn how a set worked and also get my vouchers. 2010, I did my first network show.
Okay.
2009 and 2010, I did work a little bit commercially. I had 3 nationals running.
Great.
I was interning at Actors Key.
Oh, okay, great.
For a really long time. I was there probably 5 days a week, either taking a class or running a class. I loved it. I thought there was so much value in it because my thought, and even still to this day, you can only do your scene work for the same acting teacher so many times, right? Like it's good to see somebody who doesn't know you and who's in the room helping make decisions, seeing what works specifically maybe for their office or their show.
So many of us are trained in theater and trained in conservatory world where you get to rehearse for like 6 weeks and then you like put it up and then you hiss around and it's like this. It's not at all what then showing up to Los Angeles
is like, no.
And getting an audition is at all like, right?
Yeah.
I personally couldn't recreate the anxiety and nerves that I felt performing in front of a casting director. It's like really wanting to date somebody. You've been single for a while and then, you go and you have to go on like a date and you want to like show them like that you're great and you want to hope that they're great. And there's like nervousness and excitement and, you so feel weird and it's awkward.
Yeah.
And just whatever you can do to sort of normalize that experience for me, I found tremendously valuable.
Yeah, it's really helpful. One of the things that I always loved about workshops too is I feel in any iteration of a workshop, I feel that it kind of removes that like veil of secrecy, right? That you can come into a room either in the Q&A or when you're doing your scene work and see what that person is like. So when you go into a real world situation in their office or another office, like you just know who they are. You know how their personality is. You know that if I come in the room, maybe they're not as friendly as some of the other people. This room might be a little warmer. So when I get in the room in a real situation, it doesn't throw me, right? Because the worst thing is when actors walk in and they think the room's cold or that they hate actors, which they don't.
They never do.
But,
they're tired, you guys.
They
don't get paid enough.
I mean, they're underpaid and overworked.
No, absolutely.
And undervalued in many ways.
Absolutely. In most ways.
And so actors go in there and then they feel so defeated and they just check out. And then what happens? Your audition checks out, right?
Well, or even I would even go farther than that if once you start to realize like that what you actually do for a living is audition and then you sometimes book, that's even if you have a string of some years where you're on some show or something, this idea that like then you stop auditioning in my experience is pretty mythical. I have friends who are successful actors of all levels and there's not a lot of them that aren't auditioning. I have friends with Emmy Awards and they're still auditioning. But I do think that this premise that we started with of auditioning is actually your lifestyle. You audition a lot and then you book some.
The work is the vacation maybe, right?
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. It's like the reward, right? And then you book the work. But the actual like work is the getting auditions, preparing for auditions, executing the auditions, and then to whatever degree an actor can at any moment let go of the audition, right? Learn from the audition and move on, right? But what I believe a workshop can do and can facilitate is just the steady practice of I prepare material, I go up in front of people that are decision makers, I feel my feelings, and I do my best work, learn how to do my best work under those circumstances, normalize the whole experience, and then I leave.
Just let it go. You just get to act for the night.
You cannot do workshops, and if you don't do something else, you're going to not work. So like whatever that is for you, people have to see your work, right? And I looked at it in a reasonable way of like, okay, well, I could make my own YouTube videos, but guess what? That's a lot of work, you guys.
Yeah.
To create a brand of a YouTube video is a lot of work.
And make it look good enough to differentiate from everything else.
Well, and even for people to like notice it and see it or any of that, right? Yeah. It takes a lot of work. However, if that's exciting to you to spend your time and interest and energy and money into is creating something like that, go for it. But don't think that you're going to like just like hop on your YouTube and do some content and then like, bam, you're going to get a giant following.
Yeah.
If you're going to have an Instagram following, that's a lot of work. If you're going to have a Twitter following, that's a lot of work. If you're going to make your own short film, that's a lot of work. So in any area, you are investing a lot of time, energy, and money in the potential of being seen by people. Yeah. And I just felt like, which one is it for you?
Yeah.
I personally really enjoyed that I was working on something that helped me also with my audition skills at the same time.
Yeah.
And in so doing, I also got such a really honest and grateful perspective, which I already had, but it just increased it, of the casting director and what they do. Mm-hmm. So here's what I also want to say about the structure of casting director workshops, you guys, is that, and this is what I always say to people, you know what casting directors don't want to do, you guys? They don't want to work from 10 until 7, get off of work, shove food in their mouth, drive over and go see your ass in a workshop for 2 hours. They don't want to do it.
Even better, the idea that they should do it for free.
Oh,
is
100%.
Just
not valuing their time.
It's just
I agree.
insulting.
I 100%
You would not do anything for free.
Right.
If you were a bartender and your boss said, hey, we need you to go work overtime at the other spot, you wouldn't be like, oh, okay, you're not getting paid, but you know.
Right. And so the controversy is like, well, they used to, that should be part of their job. Great. So now what you're talking about is you're talking about a system, welcome to the 90s, where casting directors were on staff.
Yeah.
So you were on staff at Warner Brothers. So a show would start casting in July, and you would have a hiatus for the holidays, and they would come back, and then they would finish up their show, and then they would get a pilot, and then there would be what was called a hiatus. However, within that,
not really happening.
No, it doesn't happen anymore. But then within that hiatus, when it was slow time, they literally used to just have like stacks of DVDs, and they would just watch people's reels because it was some downtime. Yeah. They would have generals where agents and managers would say, "Come and see this person." Like come and see their general, right? Yeah. And that's what they would do. But they were paid to live by a studio that paid them to live, right? That's done. So now that we have a bunch of different systems which are in play, right? Because the business is always moving and changing. Gone are the days of shows that are 22 to 24 episodes. Yeah. What's actually even common within network television is half seasons, right? So you'll have a show that'll be on for the fall to winter, and then one that'll be on from winter to spring, right? And then you even have some summer pickup shows that happen, right? So generally like 8 episodes is sort of the vibe. And casting directors are hustling, you guys. Like they are hustling.
I talk to a lot of them about it. Some tell me that like they now need to hustle more than we do and get in with writers and stuff.
Exactly.
Because if you go in with a writer, now when a writer sells or pitches a show, you have a casting director tied to it.
Right.
It's also harder for them because even if they're on a huge, let's say, Hulu or Netflix show.
Sure, right.
It's 10 episodes, not 22.
And then it's done.
So you're working half as much time, and now you've got to find your next job.
I hope that the pendulum swings back around and that casting directors get recognized for, I believe, the instrumental amount of value that they actually bring to a project. And I would love for them to be fought over like the great writers. I'd love for them to be fought over like the J.J. Abrams and, the Matt LeBlancs. Like, I'd love for them to be like, I want you at my studio, and we'll keep you here, and we'll give you a bunch of money just to be available to us, right? Exactly. Like, I would love for that to be true. But it's not true now, and I don't see it in the foreseeable future. So in the present moment to the foreseeable future, this is one option to extrovert your talent. But wait, Brett, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by weaudition.com. That's weaudition.com. You guys know I love We Audition. It's so great. I keep telling you about it. Promo code Audrey25. Go on there, be a reader, make some money. You get to keep all of your money as a reader. It's not like Uber where they like take money away from you. It's like if you are charging, $30 an hour, you get $30, which I think is really great. It's very affordable. You get 25% off. And I just really recommend those of you who want to be working consistently on learning sides, working them, going through sides with somebody, just, do that. Having a service like We Audition, I have personally found to be really helpful. I use it very frequently, and I've had really good success. I've even booked a really, really solid job, like a really nice job after using it. So it works. So there you go. That's weaudition.com, promo code Audrey25.
Hey, Audrey, it's Britt Allen in Dallas, Texas. I was just wondering, you were talking on Ethan's episode about being on set on commercial and having a game be about being in the shot so that you get your money. I'm wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about that and how to elegantly and delicately place ourselves in the shot so we get our money. Thanks. Love you. Bye.
Hey, Britt. I know Britt, and I think she's fabulous. So this is such a great question because I imagine this was probably something that a lot of you were like, oh, what does it mean to be framed out of a shot? Okay, so let's say that there's 4 people in a scene. And person 1 is a famous person, person 2 is closest to them, person 3 is second closest to them, and person 4 is the furthest from them. What can happen is just the same way you will crop a photo, you crop the frame of a shot so that way person 4 actually isn't in the shot. You can do that to video the same way that you do that to a photo. So this happens pretty frequently. Now, there are some things that you can do to counteract that. First of all, I really recommend that you go onto the SAG website and you investigate how much of your face needs to be in frame in order for you actually to get the residuals and not be downgraded. It's a very specific rule that they have, so go Google research that if you book a commercial. So some things that you can do to counteract that. One thing that you can do is you actually touch the person with your hand that you are sitting next to. It's like an old school trick that if your hand is like on a desk, they don't mind cutting out the wrist above. But there's something kind of creepy looking about a hand actually touching another person's physical body, and then you cut off that hand and the rest of their body. So it's just like this floating hand that's kind of attacking the person on frame. So that's one thing to do. The other thing is to just really be aware of your frame. You can go into Video Village and see what the frame looks like. Be very careful, be really courteous, don't be annoying, but you can go and check out what the frame looks like. An example I have of this is a commercial that I did, and we were all sitting sort of in a row at a desk, and they had the camera close to person number 1, and I was sort of person number 5. And the ad agency or whoever is very aware of how many people they're going to be paying residuals out to. So because I was person number 5, because like Ethan, I'm tall, so I'm often person number 5 because I fill out the background in a really nice way. They kept asking me to sit further back. And how that actually ended up in the frame was it meant that my hands were in frame, but that my face was hidden behind person number 4's face. And so I did everything I could. I scooched my whole body up to the very, very front, tippity, top, front of the chair. And I just scooched my body as close to the desk as possible. And I kept my face in front of, in frame, the person that was next to me. Audrey, could you scoot back? Oh, sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I wouldn't. And then whenever they started rolling, my face was in the frame. Now, you run a risk because they could say that in doing that, they could tell you to leave. They could tell you that this is where they need you. And if you don't do that, that they could replace you. That it didn't feel at that time that was likely because they had already been shooting for so many hours that I was like, in the shot, I'm in the shot. So they would lose everything that they had already shot up to that point because I was very much a part of the shoot up until that point. So there's something like that you can do. And I ended up making, I think, like $40,000 after that commercial. So that was a really important commercial for me to keep my effing face in the frame. But they'll do things like if somebody is at a dining table, this happens a lot if you're ever playing a waiter, where the lower half of your mouth is showing, and then it's just your hands presenting food and saying like, "Hi there, how can I help you today?" And then the camera's on the two people seated. So you just have to know if that's happening, and you just check the frame. Just check the frame. Just go back, check the frame. You can be a little bit sneaky about it. You can just sit, just go back to Video Villages where they have all the monitors and just see what's happening. And if you start to feel like maybe they're cutting you out, just see if you can lower yourself a little bit. Just see what you can do to touch the other guest. Or what else would you recommend, honey? Yeah, stacked is good. So he's saying if there's people of different heights, you sort of stack yourself to sort of find the camera. The general rule is if you can't see the camera can't see you, right? And just something just to be aware, like if you're going to be in a frame with a famous person, you're going to go like touching them, you can give them a heads up, hey, is it okay if I just, in this line, I have the impulse to sort of like, put my hand on your back, put my hand on your shoulder as I'm saying this. Is that okay? Like, go ahead and do that. You have to know what you can get away with based on what kind of person you are. I have a cute little chipmunk face. I tend to get away with a lot. So you just know you're casting. But that's the deal with framing out. It happens all the time. So just be aware it's a thing. And to the best of your ability, without being a dick, without being unprofessional, just see if you can ever so cunningly maneuver yourself into the spot. All right, you guys. I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
One of the things also I heard that when I was doing workshops, that was sort of a thing, was I had reps who said they didn't want their actors doing workshops because then they would automatically know whether or not that actor was right or wrong for a role. And so it was like the manager couldn't like properly sell you as being right for this role because they already know who you are and they have an idea of who you are and they have an idea of what you are. And
I don't even have a response for that.
Yeah, I have found that, just so everyone knows, because you might have a rep who says that, I had found that absolutely to not be true.
No.
That I found that, first of all, you want to be brought in for the roles that you're right for. I have a big point of view about agents who just want to get you auditions rather than get you auditions that you will book.
Yeah.
It's a whole
numbers
thing.
game for them. They just throw it against the wall.
Well, and they think they're doing their job.
Yeah.
And they don't maybe all know enough about what an actor does. And they think like, well, I got you at the audition. Like you have this headshot that's actually not your casting, but it gets you auditions because it's a great headshot. Then I go and get you auditions for this kind of role. But actually every time you're going to go in for this role, you're not going to.
You're never going to get
actually
it.
Not your casting.
But I got you an audition.
But I've gotten you 6 auditions in the last 6 months and you haven't booked any of them. So then they can blame you. And then they don't want you to change your headshot because they think that it's getting you in.
Getting you in the room.
And so they think it's you and your fault. And it's like, no, that's actually just not my casting. And they don't want you to change your casting as their eyes because it's getting you in the room. So that's not an effective agent. Just FYI, I just want to give a little drop to that. Okay, so let's talk about the 3.
So we have a few different formats. They range from single to multi-week.
So just so everyone knows, my favorites were multi-weeks, and here's why. I'm going to tell you about them. But this is also me and my lifestyle. If I were a parent who had kids and I needed to like get a babysitter for me to go do a workshop, I would hate the multi-weeks because I'd be like, I don't got this time is money, right? But for me and for my purposes of wanting to get better at auditioning, wanting to get better at performing in front of a casting director, here's why I loved the multi-weeks. I loved bringing my own materials in the beginning because it should be like, if you're a singer, it's like your 16 bars.
Yeah.
Like it's what you do. It's what you do best. It's like what you think your casting is. Then I would see, based on what I did in week 2, did they pick up what I was putting down? If I thought I was, funny, silly friend, did they then give me hardcore lawyer? Right? And so that's like some interesting information.
Yeah.
And then...
Which is a teachable moment.
It
because
can
it could be based on your headshot.
Yeah, exactly. And then... I also liked when we had the 3 weeks where week 1 you brought in your own material, week 2 you did co-stars, and week 3 you did guest stars. And I actually liked it when week 2 and week 3 you were actually against 5 other actors doing the same co-star.
We do have that kind of thing, which I love.
And then also week 3, same deal, but with guest stars, right? Because here's what I want you guys to know. I never got the co-star. Every single, and to this day, I've zero times did a workshop where I was the one who got the co-star. But that was actually really important data to me because I could see there wasn't maybe a lot about me that was super co-star-y. Yeah. And my resume reflects that, when I do, and that's not negative or positive. It's just where I fit in the market, right? Yeah. And that's why I had to go to New Mexico to get some co-stars, was because it was a smaller market and I knew they were just looking for some people that look like me to go and do a co-star. And I could see what it was that was getting people co-stars. And I didn't feel that I had that thing, right? Yeah. So that was good information. Another thing that was really important to me about watching people do it in groups is I remember doing workshops with what you'll start to see when you do them a lot, you guys, is you're in the same group with a lot of the same people. And here's what I also want you to know. The people that are in the workshops with you who are doing it regularly, these are the people 5 years from now that are all working. I promise you that. Yeah. All the people that I was doing workshops with, on the regular. Yeah. We were there every weekend. We were there during the weeknights. We were there twice a week. These are all the people that now have tons of credits. I always see them on set. I'm always so impressed by how we've all sort of risen to the occasion to have careers, right? Okay, so what I really loved about the multi-weeks too is I would do workshops with a group of people. We were sort of regulars at all the workshops. Yeah. And I would see maybe a guy, we'll call him Tim. Tim would always be the second choice. But it was just because of random stuff, It was this doctor, this other actress just looks more tired. Yeah. And they both did a great job, but I think I'd give it to the person that looks more tired. Yeah. And then, this other actor just looks a little more dangerous. Okay, so now what I thought was so terrible was poor Tim didn't ever get the info that he was always number 2. And number 2 isn't bad because on the right show, they would pick Tim. Also, it's a bunch of actors who were deciding whether or not they were going to cast Tim or Cheryl. Yeah. What do we know, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it was good for me to see that you could be doing really good work and have it not at all be personal, and you still don't get the role for all the reasons that people tell you don't get the role. And that's actually not your job to fix. I don't think that Tim should go and then just not sleep ever.
Be more tired or be more tough or
whatever. That's not him and that's not his casting. Yeah. But continuing to come and do the work solidly every time, casting directors could trust him. Casting directors could find the thing that was actually right for him, and then he would come in and he would book it because he was solid every time. And that took a lot of the weight and the pressure off. So it was an environment where I could sort of pretend that I was on the inside of the system rather than on the outside, and take a lot of information and knowledge.
I love that format, the kind of producer's format, and that's where you get a lot of value from these things that you can't get anywhere else. You can't get that anywhere else.
Well, and from industry insiders.
That's what I mean.
From the this is so important for you guys to understand, from the buyers, not the sellers.
Exactly.
These are the people who are buying your product and then selling it to other buyers. Yeah. Right?
It's interesting, you can do that same format in an acting class. Stan Kirsch, Leslie Kahn, whoever. Doesn't have the same effect.
I don't think so.
And it doesn't help you grow as much as it will with a casting director.
So 5 questions. Okay. Why acting?
Acting was just a way for me to express what I was feeling inside.
I love that.
It was just the simple thing of, I feel like my strength is comedy. I feel like all my training is comedy, and comedy comes from that pain. And we all have that. And so an ability to kind of use that, what's happened in our own lives, right?
I love that.
To express and affect people.
What's the best part about this business for you?
I like the challenge. Yeah. I actually like figuring out, even if it's a co-star, why you're there, right? Every line of a script, good writing is there for a reason. And that's the fun for me, is going into the lab, right? And figuring out the challenge of, why is this here?
What's the worst part about the business for you?
the politics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not even necessarily that.
I get it.
Kind of like we said about Tim. Go back to our buddy Tim.
Yeah, our buddy Tim.
You could be
because he just doesn't look tired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could be the best guy, but he looks like X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Or, we want a blonde guy.
Yeah.
Or he
And
looks like my ex-boyfriend. Or
Yeah,
you never
right.
know. You know, like that's, I don't know if that's politics or the semantics of it all.
I say the bullshit, right?
Yeah, that's what I like, the bullshit.
You know, and to me, what I actually don't even mind that. I just am sad that we don't get the feedback.
That too, yeah.
Because to me, I'm here to serve the story, and if the story is that a tired person fulfills this role better, then I want you to cast the person that's tired.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish that I knew it,
that
so
that's
that I
why.
could know. Oh, okay, so when they're looking for somebody really tired,
I'm just not going to sleep.
that's just not. I'm not going to sleep, or that's not my bag, right? Like some people have faces that just look more tired.
Yeah.
Okay, and social media.
Ace Studios LA and Ace Tapes LA.
Okay.
Our business accounts are fun. My personal social media, I have a lot of weird things I'm in. You'll just see reptiles and sneakers
All right,
for the
there
most
we
of it.
go.
So
Reptiles and
if you're into that, man, Brett M. Weinstock.
for it.
Never on Twitter. Instagram. I don't do anything on Twitter, but Instagram is where it's at.
Awesome. Well, that's all I have.
Oh,
All right,
good.
great.
Awesome. Thanks.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we have Mia Schachter. Mia Schachter is an intimacy coordinator. We really get into the nitty gritty. We do some really great exercises to give you actual practical tools so that you can really be accessible and feel safe to do your best work when regarding intimacy. She tells you how to ask for an intimacy coordinator, how to talk to your scene partners about intimacy, and I just love it. I love this interview. I love all of it. We have so much work to do in this area, so I look forward to it. Shout out and special thanks to Mike and Brett this week for coming on the show and being so helpful with all their information. I hope you have a greater understanding of workshops, how you're going to find them and make them really valuable for you and work out for you to the best of their advantage, and a little understanding and empathy for casting directors, the process they're going through, that they are working harder than ever to get jobs, keep jobs, and they are so generous and really are on your side. Big thanks to our first draft editor, Patricia Cuffie-Jones. Also, Thomas Snodgrass. He doesn't live across the street anymore, but luckily the internet exists. And also to my executive producer and husband, still so handsome, you guys, Jesse Lumen, the one, the only, the rock star. Show music is brought to you by Ari De Niro, and our theme song assistance is still brought to you by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, don't forget your towel.